In the history of church music, Victorian England saw a new banner being raised in the world of spiritual song. The standards of the street evangelists were lifted high, and with them the catchy tunes which pulled in the faithful. If you want to bring the message of eternal salvation out of the church and into the open air, how are you going to do it? Well, the first thing you need is a lot of noise, and then some colour. And when you've gathered a crowd around you, you preach the gospel. The year is 1878, and for the past 13 years, a pawnbroker's assistant called William Booth has been running a small East London mission church. He was to become world famous as General William Booth. He dressed the men and women in military-style uniforms, and later they learnt to play such instruments as the cornet, the euphonium, the trombone, and the tuba. Not just to accompany the singing, but also to drown out any interruptions there might be during their meetings. Off they went to the street corners. They played their hymns and their songs, and the people came running. The Salvation Army had been born and was marching into history. With its brilliant image and bright sound, the Sally Ann Band was certainly a crowd puller in Victorian Britain. William Booth's military style of evangelism rapidly caught on. The streets became the universal church for his new army, but it wasn't to everyone's taste. Now, there were some people who couldn't stand this street corner salvation. So they nipped off down to the local pub to have a quick pint. But there was no escape there either. Onward Christian Soldiers was everywhere. But the Salvation Army had competition. From across the Atlantic, where open-air churches were also thriving, came two of America's leading street evangelists, Ira Sankey and Dwight Moody. They crossed the ocean to bring to Britain their own brand of stirring salvation, Moody the preacher and Sankey the singer. Their powerful ballad hymns became the new popular favourites, not just in the streets, but in the parlour too, heavenly harmonies for an evening of enlightening entertainment.
Didst leave thy throne and thy kingly crown when thou camest to earth for me. But in Bethlehem's home there was found no room for thy holy nativity. Oh, come to my heart, Lord Jesus, there is room in my heart for thee. Oh, come to my heart, Lord Jesus, come. There is room in my heart for thee. Heaven's arches rang when the angels sang, proclaiming behold, saying, yet there is room at my side for thee. And my heart shall rejoice, Lord Jesus, when thou comest and callest for me. And my heart shall rejoice, Lord Jesus, when thou comest and callest for me. Jesus bids us shine with a pure, clear light, like a little candle burning in the night. In this world of darkness, so may we shine, you in your full corner, and I in mine.
So what about your impressions of hymn singing?
Well, I really was brought up on sacred songs and solos in a pretty strict Baptist church. Went to church 3 times on Sunday from the time I was 3, and went to sleep in the sermon, but got up and sang with Sankey. Wonderful.
What sort of things can you remember?
Well, I mean, dare to be a Daniel, dare to stand alone, and then you'd actually heard the reading about Daniel in the lion's den. So many, I mean, Granny, I suppose Granny was my major influence. My grandfather was actually one of Spurgeon's deacons in the Tabernacle, and so it said when he was announcing one of the hymns, Anchors Fast, his tie anchor fell off and my dad laughed. He did not get clouted for that. But Granny, and towards the end of her life, she couldn't get to church anymore. And I used to stay at home, any excuse not to get to church, you see, and sing. His hands were pierced, those hands that made the mountain range and Everglade. You see, and I used to go to church, and all these people used to get up and have their sort of orgasm, say they had seen the Lord. It never happened to me, and I thought I must be very, very wicked. But at the end of the war, when I could get out of London, I found my road to Damascus was seeing the countryside. So all these wonderful songs came along. And when you think that Moody and Sankey were great evangelists, and they were rather like medicine men, they went round the country singing, Moody banging the Bible, and writing these fantastic songs. I suppose my favourite one was, there's a light upon the mountain, and the day is at the spring, and the eye shall see the glory and the coming of the King. And yeah, it was worth actually going to church just to sing those things. And I remember the first time, I'd always desperately wanted to go to the Holy Land, and see, kneeling there in Calvary, back came that song. His hands and her feet and heart, all three, were pierced for me on Calvary. And at Bethlehem, I'm sure it isn't the actual place where the crib was. Well, I pray it is, because I knelt there and I sang, I am H-A-P-P-Y, I am H-A-P-P-Y, I know I am, I'm sure I am H-A-P-P-Y.
Amazing. Another musical import arrived with American missionary John Andrews. The founder members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church knew the power of a rousing chorus, calling themselves a people of song. Their strict obedience to the Bible, including going to church on a Saturday, the old Sabbath, made them take on the highest authorities, campaigning for change in the laws about Sunday worship. Praising God through music kept them going, as it does today.
Adventists started off as a singing movement, and we look forward to heaven, where we will continue to sing praises to God face to face. And singing is an offering which we bring to church. We offer it to God, and it's also a form of communication between us and God, and also between us and others.
We read in the Bible, particularly in the Psalms, that music was just a natural part of worshipping and praising God. And therefore, possibly that's where our roots come from. It is just, I couldn't imagine a worship service without music.
We praise God by singing, and anybody, no matter how sad you're feeling, even if you don't know the words of a song, you can hum a tune and it uplifts your spirit.
Music to me is important because it soothes my soul. It's above all things, a wonderful medium as well for me to communicate to other people the nature of the God that I serve. I think also all too often we perceive a way of communicating our faith to other people as a sermon, being able to just sit down face to face with somebody and talk, whereas a language that people understand and keeping their memories for longer is, from where I stand, music.
Well, I think that for any believer who's filled with thanksgiving and praise to God, words are simply inadequate. And I find that what sums it up are the words of the psalmist who said, "It's a good thing to give thanks unto the Lord and to sing praises unto his name." And I think that when music becomes an integral part of worship, it's a holy celebration. We're celebrating thanksgiving to the God who's given us all good things on heaven and on earth. So that to me is why music's so important for us as a church.
There's a great cathedral in the promised land. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great cathedral in the promised land. So walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great cathedral in the promised land. Gonna walk and never, never, walk walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great cathedral in the promised land. Gonna sing and never, never stop. Sing and never stop. Sing and never stop. We're gonna sing and never stop. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. There's a great cathedral in the promised land. Gonna shout, hallelujah. Hallelujah, Lord, we're gonna shout and never stop. Shout and never, shout and never stop. In the promised land. So walk together, children,